What is going on, everybody? It is your boy SK. This is Purple and SKOL'd Media, and we got some bye-week blitz for you guys today. And we're going to get right down to it and compare the 2024 Vikings to the 2016 Vikings. Buckle up. What is going on, everybody? It is your boy SK. This is Purple and SKOL'd Media back at you once again. And it's the bye week blitz, man. 5-0 going into the bye week. Got to feel good about this football team. It's been a long time since we've been able to feel this confident in the Minnesota Vikings. And this is even pertaining to the 2022 Vikings when we ended the season 13-4. And looked like we had a great offense. Now defense was a little shaky, but I don't think we were that invested into that football team as we are invested into this football team. And it shows you there's context to what the record is as well. So we could sit here and we can compare the 2022 Minnesota Vikings with the 2024 Minnesota Vikings, but the real comparison is the 2016 Vikings to the 2024 Vikings. Both teams started off 5-0. Both teams weren't expected to be as good as they are, at least the first 5 games. And before I really looked into the comparison between these two teams, I was convinced this 2024 team was light years ahead of that 2016 team statistically. Just statistically. Now, when I go back and I actually look at the stats, that's not necessarily the case. You guys might not like it, but I gotta keep it real here. The stats are extremely comparable, and you'd be surprised. You'd be extremely surprised if you compare the 2016 Vikings to the 2022 Vikings. Starting off, obviously, both teams went 5-0 to start the season. If you guys don't remember, in 2016, this is when Sam Bradford came in, but he didn't come in until week 2 because Teddy Bridgewater had gotten hurt before the season, and we traded for Sam Bradford last minute, kind of just threw him in there in week 2. So week 1, Sean Hill started. So I'm not necessarily going to look at week 1 of 2016. It was a different quarterback. They played against the Titans, but nonetheless, they still won that game with Sean Hill behind a very good defensive performance. 2 defensive TDs in that game. One pick 6 by Eric Kendricks, and I believe it was a fumble recovery by Danielle Hunter, if I'm not mistaken, that ultimately ended up winning in that game. I believe they won by 9 points in that game, and that was the difference, the 2 defensive touchdowns. Now, if we look at the following 4 games for Sam Bradford, weeks 2 through 5, started off in that first game in week 2, 22 for 31, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a completion percentage of 71%. Absolutely lit it up. Lit it up. Week 3, 18 for 28, 153 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interception, 64% completion percentage. Week 4, 26 for 36, 262 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, and a completion percentage of 72.2. And then week 5, 22 for 30, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a completion percentage of 73.3. Great stats, no turnovers. I believe he may have had a fumble or 2 in those first 5 weeks, but no interceptions. Absolutely lit it up. Now, Sam Darnold's first 5 games of the season, as we all know, are very good besides this last game against the Jets. Week 1, 19 for 24, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, a completion percentage of 79.2. And then week 2, 17 for 26, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a completion percentage of 65.4. Week 3, 17 for 28, 156 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a completion percentage of 60.7. Week 4, 20 for 28, 254 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, completion percentage of 71.4. And obviously against the Jets, 15 for 32, 171 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a completion percentage of 46.9, which was his rough game. But nonetheless, both teams 5-0 after that week 5 game, and they go into the bye week after their week 5. And this is where the comparison comes up, right? Now, the quarterbacks may not have necessarily been super comparable, but when you look at obviously the records of this team, having a bye week after week 5, not expecting to be 5-0 after 5 weeks, it's got to have some similarities. Got to you got to kick the tires on this comparison here. Now, this is where it kind of gets freaky for me. And again, before I started, doing my personal research and looking up these numbers, in my head, 2024 was or is a whole lot better as far as defensively, offensively, everything than 2016 is. Then I looked at the numbers. They're not that far apart, guys. They're actually very, very close. Um, 2016 in the first game of the season, Minnesota had 2 defensive touchdowns. Minnesota has 2 defensive touchdowns in the first 5 weeks. In 2016, it was also 2 defensive touchdowns in the first 5 weeks. They just both happened to come in week 1. Ended up with 4 defensive touchdowns on the season. Second, sacks. This is always a big stat when you're looking at your team. You want your team to get after the passer. And if you look at 2016, 19 sacks through week 5. 2024, 20 sacks through week 5. Pretty much dead even. Then you go down to turnovers. Again, another big stat when you're looking at your football team and comparing. In 2024, obviously, we have 13 turnovers in the first 5 weeks. In 2016, you had 12 turnovers through the first 5 weeks. Again, damn near exactly the same. One more in 2024. Those are those big stats that you want to look at. If you look at interceptions, 7 interceptions through 5 weeks in 2016, obviously 11 interceptions through the first 5 weeks in 2024. 2016, the Vikings ended up 7th in forcing turnovers. We are currently 2nd in the league in forcing turnovers at the moment. And then you obviously look at the total interceptions on the year for 2016 was only 14 interceptions. We already got 11. So, and then 41 sacks overall in the year of 2016. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of comparable stats here to where we can't just kind of brush it off and say there is no comparison between the 2016 Vikings and the 2024 Vikings. Like I have reason to be concerned. We all got PTSD as Minnesota Vikings fans to say, you know what, we've been here before. This is 2016 all over, possibly. You have the right to feel that way. Now, here is the other side of the spectrum for me. This is what kind of gets me, I guess you can say, confident in this 2024 team a whole lot more than the 2016 team. And this was 8 years ago, guys. I'm almost positive a lot of us don't remember how confident we felt after those first 5 weeks with Sam Bradford and this football team. We could have been feeling the same exact way. We're Super Bowl bound. We're going into our bye week. We're going to just run the table. It's been a long time. Emotions, feelings change up extremely quickly. Can only take a couple weeks. And in 2016, it only took 3 or 4 weeks because after that bye week, we dropped 4 straight. So we went from 5-0 to 5-4 before we picked up our next victory. So there's reason for concern, but here's the difference, in my opinion. One, coaching is a whole lot better than what it was in 2016 on both sides of the ball. Now, you can say Zimmer obviously had his, run on the defensive side of the ball where our defense was dominant for multiple years. And 2016 was somewhat along those lines of being dominant. Now, what we're projecting in 2024 kind of blows some of those numbers out of the water that 2016 ended up finishing with. But again, they started strong in 2016 as well. But I have far more confidence in this coaching staff than I do in the 2016 Minnesota Vikings with Mike Zimmer. Then secondly, and this is a big one for me, and this is still up in the air. There's question marks around this right now, and that is the running back position. In 2016, Matt Asiata was our starting running back. Now, I love me some Matt Asiata. Don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. But Matt Asiata is no Aaron Jones. So you have a run game. And if you want to look at the running or the rushing numbers through the first 5 weeks in 2016 compared to the rushing numbers in 2024, through 5 weeks in 2016, total rushing yards 353. In 2024, 577. So you have over 200 more rushing yards in 2024 through 5 weeks than you did in 2016. And one thing I've always harped on extremely hard is you got to be able to play defense in this league, rush the passer, and you got to be able to run the ball. Now, your regular season, you may not feel it as much as you need to, as far as I need to run the ball, I need to play defense. That will show up in the playoffs, or that will show up late in the season. If you're able to run the ball, play defense exactly what we're doing right now, 2024 Vikings, you give yourself an extremely good chance to make a run deep in the playoffs this year. The problem with the 2016 Vikings is that they didn't have a running game. They rushed for over 100 total rushing yards once in their first 5 weeks in 2016. The Minnesota Vikings rushed for over 100 yards 4 out of the 5 first games. That is the difference. Coaching is the difference. And I'll tell you on top of this, the vibes are different. Way different. And it starts at the top. Again, I loved Mike Zimmer when he was here and he was hitting on all cylinders. I thought he was a very good coach. His time ran out. He got grumpy, didn't change with the times, and it was just time to move on. But the vibe in this locker room, the vibe with this team, you see it when you're watching the games. You see it when you're watching the field access videos that the Minnesota Vikings drop, behind the scenes videos. You see it, you feel it. This team is different. They have a different vibe. Yes, it's the same record as the 2016 Minnesota Vikings. Yes, the turnover averages are damn near exactly the same. The turnover margin is exactly the same. The sack margin, exactly the same. I mean, there's a lot of things that are very similar in this. But one thing I trust more than statistics, one thing I trust more than word of mouth is what I see myself, what I hear for myself. And what I see and what I hear about this football team is that the vibe around this locker room and this roster is far, far better than what it was in 2016 and years past. KOC has said this multiple times. When we first started in minicamp, I told the guys, I can feel it. I can feel it with this team. And I'm going to hold you guys to it. All the fans, I don't care how much we love this Vikings football team. Before the season started, some of us may have thought, hey, we could do good. We can make a playoff run, but we're going to kind of be middle of the pack. Nobody expected this from the Minnesota Vikings, including our fans. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have smart fans. Some not so much, but we have a pretty smart fan base to where they're somewhat knowledgeable of football, to where they can look at a team and say, maybe not so much. We're not expecting too much this year. Sam Darnold's our quarterback, and it's going to be fun. But no one expected a 5-0 start. I don't care what you say. Don't lie to me. It's okay. None of us expected this. But one person who, may not have expected a 5-0 start to start the season, but one person that expected this team to be very good, or people that expected this team to be very good, was this coaching staff, was KOC, was Brian Flores, Keenan McCardell, Josh McCown. They were confident in this football team. They were there during OTAs and mini camp and the start of training camp. They were there. They saw it for themselves. They felt the vibes for themselves. We're just catching up as a fan base. They're saying, we told you so. I said this when minicamp and OTA started. I felt this way. That's what KOC said. I sure as hell didn't feel that way. And I'm not afraid to admit it. I wasn't expecting this football team to be this good. The opening stretch of our season was the toughest portion of our schedule. And we were all well aware of that. And we all went into it saying, if we can just manage to come out with a 3-2 record, 2-3, things lighten up, we can get right back on. We can make a playoff run. Mama, look at us now. We are 5-0 going into our bye week. Coming out of that bye week, we have a huge, huge game against the Detroit Lions. It's not going to decide the division necessarily, but I expect Detroit to beat Dallas this upcoming week. So that's going to put them into this game 5-1. Or 4-1, because they had a bye week. They're going to enter this game 4-1. So they're looking at it as, hey, we're the defending NFC North champs. These are the guys that think they're going to take it from us. Let's go get it back. And we know that Detroit Lions team is going to be motivated. Dan Campbell, you can say what you want about the guy, how quirky he is and crazy. The guy's a hell of a motivator. I got to give it to him. So that team's going to be motivated, and they're going to play hard every single game. So that game's going to be really fun. But again, I can't stress this enough. The comparisons are there, but the vibe is different. So if you were to ask me if the 2024 Minnesota Vikings are just like the 2016 Vikings, I would have to tell you no. Even though the numbers may prove that they kind of are the 2016 Vikings. But there's always context to it. And you're not going to take it away from this team. Why would you take away from a team being 5-0? Who would give that up? Who would say, nah, that's not impressed. Enjoy the ride, guys, because it's going to be one hell of a ride this season. Regardless of what the outcome will be, if we continue to play the way we've been playing these first 5 weeks, we're going to make a deep run. This NFC is wide open, guys. Wide open. The favorites going into the season was obviously the 49ers, was the Detroit Lions, the Philadelphia Eagles, and I believe the Cowboys were the next favorite on that list. If you look at all of those teams, 49ers aren't looking hot right now. Now, I know they're banged up. I don't expect Christian McCaffrey to come back this season. I don't think they'll have him this season. George Kittle's a little banged up. You got Debo Samuel seems like he's getting banged up every other game. Brandon Ayuk isn't playing up to his contract. You have Trent Williams that kind of gave a fuss about his contract before the season started. San Francisco's got a lot going on right now. Now, I expected them to take a little bit of a step back this year. I didn't think they're going to take this far of a step back. It's still early. I still expect them to make the playoffs, but that's a team that everybody was expecting to, if not be the favorite in the NFC, but actually represent the NFC again in the Super Bowl. I don't think that's the case this year. I think there's multiple teams in the NFC that are better than the 49ers, even while they're healthy. Now you look at the Philadelphia Eagles. You can call me biased, you can call me an Eagle hater, you can call me whatever you want. I don't believe in the Eagles. And the main reason why I don't believe in the Eagles is because their coach. When you have a guy running your NFL franchise, you need an adult. You need a man. You don't need a child running a football team. Now, granted, the Eagles got a great roster. I love the roster. AJ Brown's been out. He's, that's a big shot to them. Devontae Smith was out with a concussion this past week. So you've had guys that have missed time for the Philadelphia Eagles, but long term, when it gets tight, I don't believe in the Eagles specifically because of their coach and a little bit because of their quarterback. Now, you look at the Cowboys, they're an absolute fucking mess right now. The Cowboys are a mess. Do they have the talent? Sure. But that Mike Zimmer-led defense, it's not looking hot. Not looking hot. So Cowboys don't concern me. 49ers, I wouldn't say they don't concern me, but I'm not confident in them being that same favorite that they were going into the season. A lot of it due to injuries, but I was expecting them to take a step back anyways. Now you got the Lions, team in your own division, a team that I felt disrespected the Minnesota Vikings last year. May not have been shit talking or whatever, but just the way they went into games and bullied us. And that's what you're supposed to do as an opponent. Your goal is to go into that game, and whoever you're playing against, your goal is to bully them. We're not going to hop and skip around and play double dutch. No, I'm coming to intimidate you. I'm coming to bully you, and I'm going to run you over. And that's exactly what the Detroit Lions did. I don't care how close the games were. They were the far more physical team in both of those games last year. This year, I can tell you, we got a far more physical team. Our attitude is different. And I credit that, at least a little bit, to the Detroit Lions. And you got to give KOC and this coaching staff credit for acknowledging that. They looked and said, hey, look, it may have been more than just the Detroit Lions games, but when you look at this thing, the games that we did lose, most of the time it was just us getting bullied. Us getting bullied in the trenches. And it always seems to be our downfall at the end of the day. And KOC went into this offseason and said, not us. We're not getting bullied. We're going to be the bully. And that's exactly what we've been through 5 weeks. And I don't expect anything less coming out of the bye week. But a big part of that is you got to get Aaron Jones back. You got to. And this past week showed just how important Aaron Jones is to this football team. So my fingers are crossed. He's back for the Detroit game. I wouldn't rush him back. It's a long season, and he's known to get banged up. If he's not 100% for Detroit, hold him out. But I'll tell you right now, if he is, I expect this football team to do exactly what they've been doing the first 5 weeks. And that's dominating. And that's bullying. And that's punching your opponent in the mouth. I don't expect anything less from this football team for the majority of the season. And you guys shouldn't either. So I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. Again, 2016, 2024, 2 different years, 2 different teams, 2 different coaching staffs, and 2 different eras. This team's different. So, like I said earlier, enjoy the ride. It's going to be a fun one. And we're not going to be able to predict what happens next with this football team. But I will tell you this. We're going to fight and claw our way, whether it's to a win or whether they're going to fill us after the game and we didn't come away with the dub. But you know what? I fully expect us to come away with the dub. So until next time, y'all, it is your boy SK. If you don't already, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button to Purple and SKOL'd Media on YouTube. And as well on Facebook too. Go ahead and hit that follow button on the Facebook page, Purple and SKOL'd Media. Until next time, we got a bye week. Get to kick our feet up. Stress-free football. We got some good games this Sunday. So enjoy the Red Zone channel for once. But then it's back to business. So again, appreciate you guys for tapping in. It is your boy SK. Until next time, Skol Vikes.